another edition of the Insider versus Lappas. I'm the Insider, that's Lappas, and Mr. T will be joining us later in the program. So Lappas, this season in the FHL, there's been a lot of injuries.
Right.
A lot of players injured. I don't know what's going on, maybe because it's an Olympic year, more games.
More games bunched together, more intensity, which causes more injuries, of course.
And there's another big injury, and it was a player from my team,
Right.
Alex Ovechkin, and he's injured. Still not determined how long he'll be out. Some sources were saying a couple of weeks, others were saying a couple of games. We still don't know, but Ovechkin is a big loss to the Avalanche.
It's a big loss to your team, and it shows. With the loss of Ovechkin and Sedin, you are struggling. Even though you were leading at this point before tonight's games, you weren't up by much. You weren't a high-scoring team, so that might hurt you in the long run if Ovechkin doesn't come back soon.
Definitely, I agree. And now I was even surprised that I was in the league, but I guess we'll see what happens, and hopefully. And last week we were talking about these players, Ovechkin, Crosby, and Malkin, if they should be allowed to get drafted. So I guess when an injury comes like this, an injury can happen to anybody,
Exactly.
to those three players.
Exactly.
There was also a couple of trades in the FHL this week. There was a 3-on-3 trade between Liverpool and the Oilers. The Oilers gave Knubel, Spezza, and Seabrook to Liverpool in exchange for Jokinen, Boys, and Brian McCabe.
I think Liverpool has the advantage. Liverpool got Spezza. Spezza's not having a great season, but he will definitely pick it up, and I think Liverpool will come out the winners of that trade.
I agree. I think this was a desperation move from the Oilers, who've been struggling, and just did any kind of changes to work on their team.
Right, and I'm pleased, well, not pleased, but finally the Canucks got rid of Alex Kovalev, like they wanted to the Ducks in exchange for Martin Havlat. I don't think this trade will make much of a difference for any of these teams. Basically, they're just getting rid of their bad elements, their bad apples.
It might actually make a difference to the rest of the teams in FHL, because now the Canucks, instead of offering Kovalev to everybody, will be offering Havlat.
There you go.
So it will impact the rest of the team in the FHL. And if I'm not mistaken, Liverpool, I think it's the trade they did before was their second or third trade of the season. I think it was the third, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, it just shows that the commission who drafted Liverpool is a bad drafter.
Yeah, but usually the way the people go to restructure their team is through the free agency.
Exactly.
I guess Liverpool is trying different methods.
Right.
All right, so coming up next, we're going to open the Insider versus Lappas mailbag. Alright, time now to open the Inside versus Lappas mailbag, the virtual mailbag. And Lappas, go ahead with this week's question.
This week's question comes to us from Penguins GM Steph Janakis, who writes, "Dear Insider versus Lappas, why did the Canucks suck so much?" Well, Steph, the reason why the Canucks suck so much this year is because of bad drafting. For example, let's look at their lineup. Gomez, Horkoff, big problems with that. Langenbrunner, Havlat, Wolski, Stafford, Corvo, Suter. Where are you going with these players? That's why the Canucks suck so much. Does that answer the question?
And the Canucks usually in the previous seasons always had a strong team in the regular season, and I guess what happens is there's parity in the FHL.
Exactly, parity.
So teams are getting better and more equal. And the same thing with the Oilers, usually a strong team in the regular season FHL, but this year they're
again Oilers, Koivu, Jokinen, Boys, Klo, Ben, Blake, Hossa, who's injured, McCabe, Kuba. Where are you going? Marc-Andre Bergeron. Where are you going with these players? Nowhere.
So those teams, both of them, they're a bust.
They're a bust, exactly.
Alright, so thanks for the question, Steph, and thanks for watching the program like you do every single week. And coming up next, we have a new segment
called The Real World.
Yeah, and Mr. T will be joining us for that segment, and it's coming up next. Alright, it's time now here for the real world. So this is a new segment on the program. It won't be a weekly segment. It'll be
random, right?
Whenever something happens.
Yeah, and we're gonna have many of these segments, right? That we're gonna be doing as the weeks go by randomly.
Right.
Like we said, I think it was in the first episode of the season. We said we'll be doing predictions. We're gonna be starting off that probably next week. But what the real world is about is we're gonna be talking about the world outside of the fantasy world. And I think this week's real world story will be coming from Mr. T.
Well, the story started it happened last Saturday at the Casual Sport in downtown Montreal at the Bell Center, where I and Chris went there to watch the game. And we were told we had to leave because we didn't have tickets for the game. Well, you weren't there, but how does this sound to you? Waiting in line in the arena for an hour and being told that you have to go?
When you go to a restaurant, there's no tickets to go to the restaurant.
Isn't that discrimination?
That is some form of discrimination, and you should write a letter.
So what do we do about that?
Well, we've decided our next step would be to writing a letter to Mr. Jean Bedard, who is CEO, if I'm not mistaken, or president of the group Sports Scene.
Okay.
Which owns the Casual Sport. So we'll be sending out that letter in the upcoming week, and I guess when we get the result, I guess we could share it here.
Forgot to mention yours and to the audience that the bouncer that as soon as we were after an hour of waiting, we get to the front of the line, and the guy, he was rude, and he pretty much told us, well, you get out of here and you come back after 7, and if there's room, you can come in.
Yeah. So that's it. So we'll keep you posted when we get our news back. We'll bring it back here on the Insider versus Lappas, and the truth of the story is, well, if you don't have a ticket, I guess
don't go to the Casual Sport at Bell Center on the game.
Or just plain and simple, just don't go there because there's shit food, there's shit service. Just don't go there.
So I guess that's it for the real world and for this week's program. Mr. T, always doing a good job like always, drinking his beer. Lappas, welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
And
cheers to your beer too.
Thank you. And thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you next week on The Inside versus Lappas
with Mr. T.